So, Martin, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Hopefully we're actually live this time. Hopefully there's no problems.
Yeah. We got there eventually.
We did get there, we think, eventually. Right.
But they're getting a double dose today, so.
Yeah. So just to start this off, now the thumbnail for this has a picture of Alan Davies, and also in the corner a picture of David Baddiel. And David Baddiel in that picture is dressed up as a footballer from the early 90s called Jason Lee, who was a striker for Nottingham Forest. And David Baddiel's got a pineapple on his head and he's in blackface. Now, I know that the thumbnail says about Arsenal fans and David Baddiel's a Chelsea fan before anyone goes pointing that out. But I just wanted to draw the comparison between the 90s and 2022, where we all supposed to believe that things have changed. And they've not really, have they, Martin? Things are still sort of the same, just in a different way. It's like it's wearing a different mask these days. Maybe it's not in blackface anymore. Maybe the blackface days have gone. But there are still some very, very invasive and insidious forms of racism that still permeate throughout football to this day. So, Martin, do you want to tell us why we're here today?
Yeah, and you just hit the nail on the head. And it's palmed off as banter. You know, banter's now a very scary word because banter's now an excuse for anything and everything that was allowed. Now, Rob said the 90s. I'd say more the 80s, where what we're about to talk about to me wasn't even 90s. It was going back to the 80s of football. That's how vile, disgusting.
Martin, how about you get on topic and talk about what we're here for today?
Well, what I'm going to do is, you wouldn't have me any other way. What I'm going to tell you now is, as we all know, Manchester City beat Arsenal 2-1. Now, ever since last weekend, when we beat Arsenal 2-1, there was a lot of backlash, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, a lot of everything else aimed from Arsenal. Not all Arsenal fans, but a good majority of them, and the footballing family towards Manchester City, their fans, their players, their coaches, and everything. And like everything does, there was a podcast that was given out. I think it was on Tuesday of this week it came out, funnily enough. It's actually a podcast called The Tuesday Club. Now, it has a chap on it called Alan Davies, who is a comedian, former TV star. Well, star, you know, anyone remembers Jonathan Creek, that's the guy I'm talking about. And it started off with its normal anger, vileness, you know, football's in the mud.
Stuff that you could write off as just general football banter.
Stuff
that we say, stuff that anyone says. When you're angry about a defeat, whatever. Everyone says stuff when they're angry about a defeat, or they're angry about VAR, or they're angry about a particular player's performance, all the rest of it.
And then the tone went completely down. Completely and utterly down. And there was a huge backlash on it. And there was a little bit, you know, I will go through what they've, I'll go through it now, what was said. Now, Alan Davies was sat with a panel of people, I presume, and these are the quotes that he came out with. Because he was, like Rob said, City, beat us, cheese, but then it changed. The whole tone changed to where we got. Manchester City owners to sell up and get out. Go buy Borussia Dortmund. Oh, that was it. There is a stink at Manchester City in our league. And I just wish this mob had bought a club in another league. So our owners are straight away a mob. Go buy Borussia Mönchengladbach. Take them past Bayern Munich to the top of whatever league they're called. So he doesn't even know what the Bundesliga is. I know he does crits.
Well, Martin, these are all just general football banter things. To get on
this is the start of the time.
But all of that sort of stuff, Martin, it's fine. I've said stuff like that. You've said stuff like that.
Yeah, well, he goes on. We don't want your money. Don't pretend you're playing great stuff. Guardiola's a genius and amazing. Blah, blah, blah. He said, no one wants, this is where it goes. Sell up and leave. You've had your fun, go away. No one wants the oil bastard money. No one wants to see
so that's setting a particular sort of tone there. Oil
that's
money.
The tone
Okay,
right there.
okay.
But it isn't just oil money, it's oil bastard money. There's that emphasis thrown into it straight away. To come here with that attitude to football, that attitude to the opposition, that attitude to the opposition fans, that attitude to Arsenal itself, which is a football institution. Yeah, anyway. So, like Rob said, the tone has started. To come in and behave like that in our stadium, stinking of money, filthy, cheating, referees here, diving, pulling shirts, mouthing off. But again, I took you in the cheating. Talks about how he hates United, Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, not Arsenal, Chelsea, that sort of thing. 100 points, that's not normally when it goes on to say. No, it's bent. Domestic treble, is that normal because of good football? No, it's bent. You're bent. You have 100, and then he goes on calling Jack Grealish £100 moron, which Rob would probably agree with. He said, no, this is where we go. Why don't you sell up and leave? Can we have a vote? All 19 clubs have a vote, get out and play somewhere else. Now, the MEN thing stops at that point. But if anyone actually listened to the rest of it, because it does continue for another 5 minutes, he finishes that line with, and somewhere else, find your own desert and go and play in it. Which, surprised why MEN have decided to take that out a little bit, but that's where we got to. Go and play in your own desert. Then he starts talking about Pep. And now at this point, I think he's got, like I said, 2 or 3 of his friends with him, or 2 or 3 of his people he does the podcast with. At that point, when he said, go and find your own desert, they all cheered. Every single one of them. It was like a goal had just been scored at the Emirates, the way they erupted. It was vulgar and vile and downright. People said it's xenophobic. No, it isn't. It was just plain racism. It was plain racism. That's where it is. It's also hypocrisy as well, which we'll go into as well, because Arsenal fans must be silly if they can't realise what they've just said and who actually sponsors them. Funny that, and who owns them as well. But we'll come on to that in a little minute, because I'm starting to get on my high horse. He then jumps on Pep Guardiola. What do you think of Pep Guardiola? Well, he's Spanish. Don't like Spaniards. It just took an absolute nosedive. And what I'm getting pissed off about is how Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, none of them had to deal with any of this crap.
Well, let me just give some context here for the ladies and gentlemen. Right, so you might think that Martin's going off at the deep end. You might think, well, that doesn't sound that bad. But let's try and add a little bit of wider context to this, right? So, go and play in your own desert. Okay, so we know that our owners are from the Middle East. Now, that is xenophobic and that is racist to insinuate that they're not in some way the too bent or corrupt, because he did load these statements with saying that we were bent and corrupt and all the rest of it.
Oil bastard
money, go and play in your own desert. Now, we know that our owners are from the Middle East. We know that is synonymous with racists and the fact that they all live in Bedouin tents and all the rest of that nonsense. That's the picture they're trying to paint. Simple people, perhaps. And it's just very, very loaded. I mean, for example, now, Arsenal's owner, Stan Kroenke, is American. Now, how about our owners came out and said something like, Stan Kroenke should go and set up his own league in a Walmart or a McDonald's or something like that. It's that sort of comment. It's basically, you're taking the lowest common denominators about somebody's culture and suggesting that that's what they should do with their life. You know, Martin's from a mill town in Manchester, so Martin, you should go and sew sheets together or whatever. You know, that's the lowest common denominator thing of where they're from. And our owners obviously are from the Middle East. So Alan Davies is saying, you know, go and make your own sand football, which is just massively racist. There's no two ways about it. And then to go on now, listen. We all might have heard worse in a pub at some point. Calling Pep Guardiola a dirty Spaniard or whatever. What was his exact words, Martin? I don't like the Spanish. He's a filthy Spaniard or something like that. Was the
They
word.
basically said, what was Guardiola doing? He said, well, he was just being a Spaniard stood there.
Yeah, well,
Spanish.
You might say we're being reactionary, or you might say that we're being over the top. But I tell you why we're not. Here's why we're not being reactionary or over the top about this. Right. What's been going on in the last few years of football?
Big campaign.
Massive campaigns to stop racial abuse, racial hatred, and all the rest of it. Now, this is certainly, what Alan Davies has said is certainly not the worst thing I've ever heard around football. However, it is absolutely the seeds. It's the seeds of racism. And I've got a few articles here. So this is something that I like to bang the drum about a lot. How UEFA fined Manchester City £24,735 for being one minute late back to a Champions League fixture, which is £8,000 more than Porto were fined for being racist towards Mario Balotelli and Yaya Toure. I've pointed that one out a few times. You got Raheem Sterling here, talks about the media fueling racism, which it absolutely does. And here's some examples of the headlines that have been in newspapers over the year. Raheem shoots himself when he had that gun tattoo as a memorial for his dad.
Yeah.
That was a simple memoriam for his dad, who died as a victim of gun crime. Then you've got tired Raheem. England failure steps off playing and insults by showing off big house. Premier rat, calling Raheem Sterling a rat. Troubled youth to £100,000 a week. The life of a footy idiot Raheem Sterling. Love rat Raheem Sterling proposes to long-suffering girlfriend. 44 million bargain loving Raheem Sterling's taste in Greg's. He loves pasties. I mean, what are these articles? Raheem Sterling gets wardrobe from Primark despite £180,000 a week salary. So what? So because he's careful with his money. Obscene Raheem. Keep your shirt on. Just all of the Raheem Sterling splashes out on £3 million mansion after EasyJet and Pound World. All of these articles have been coming out for you. And it's not just, like, I've just picked the cherry pick there of the Raheem Sterling sort of stuff, right? But all of these things are invasive and they are considered part of football. And and for the last 4 or 5 years, racism doesn't have any place in football. It doesn't have any place in football at any level. Be it the very small level of just, sniggering to your friend about a black player or an Asian player or whatever. But the problem with someone like Alan Davies is a well-known British public voice. Some people would consider him an institution. And yes, he's a comedian. And yes, comedians should push buttons. Yes, comedians should say outlandish things. But racism's something different. Like I said, even if the things that Alan Davies said are only the seeds that grow into the plant, it's still sowing in society this message that at some level racism is acceptable and racism is okay. When we all know that the whole modus operandi of the Premier League and UEFA and all the rest of it at the minute is to get rid of this invasive, disgusting disease that plagues society.
Yeah.
So how on one hand can we all be sort of like, some people are taking the knee, some people are pointing it out, everyone's wearing the no room for racism badges.
There's a big clap when people take the knee.
On one level, how can we have that in our society where we're all trying to push together to get rid of this nonsense and this disgusting, vile nonsense from our sport that we all love? Yet we have this man who has a massive, massive platform making these disgusting comments. And I bet he's not the only one. No.
But just because he's literally come out and, like I said, the other bits, you can take as banter and jealousy and this, but it overstepped the mark. It went way over the mark. And unfortunately, you got a lot of rival fans jumping on it, saying City were being precious and everything else. And for me, I mean, I've even heard a story. I think it was Rob was telling me and Rich was telling me that, you know, the Reds were all going to get together. And unfortunately, we have this stigma and we're going to have our owners attacked. And it's now got to an absolute, I don't even know what kind of level you want to call it, but it's got to a level that is beyond banter, beyond football, beyond sport, beyond rivalry. We're now into a and the funny thing is,
when public voices like Alan Davies make comments like he's made, very ill-judged, offensive comments, to a certain element in society, it makes it acceptable. It makes it okay.
yeah,
And that's why we see on the terraces every other week we hear about fans being pulled out of the crowd and banned for making racist digs or gestures or whatever it may be that they do.
City make an announcement at half-time as well, don't they? If you hear it, report it.
Yeah.
Straight away.
So all of these things are still there at some level. Even if it's just one man or one woman or one child. You know, God forbid that it be a child. Making these racist comments, it's because people like Alan Davies are still adding fuel to the fire. Now, I'll just say this, right? Not to be a crazy man, but Alan Davies over the years, I've enjoyed the work he's done. I've never particularly followed his stand-up comedy, and I've never listened to one of his podcasts. It's Martin who's brought this information, but he was fun on Jonathan Creek. I enjoyed him on QI. He's been generally good, and I've known for a long time that he's an Arsenal fan and a passionate Arsenal fan. Me and Martin are passionate Manchester City fans. Have you ever once heard us say anything racist or insinuate anything racist or defamatory or derogatory? Not once. So the passion can absolutely exist without the undertones of racism. You know, I just don't understand it. This is 2022, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposed to be a lot more mature and a lot more grown up than that now.
And the thing that pees me off is it was a dig at us. And that's not so much its fact is Arsenal have Emirates all over their shirts. It's the Emirates Stadium. Now, where is Emirates based? UAE. So, do you see what I mean? It opens up so many stupid things. I mean, they were talking about, I say, I don't mind the wages, because the wages things, we can argue with the wages. We can say, hang on a minute, you were paying Ozil 350 grand a week long before we ever went near that amount. That can be all bantered and argued with on a Friday night in a pub. But when you are going down to race and xenophobia, you've lost the argument at that point because you've lost your head. And I don't care. And the thing is, Alan Davies has done it before. He has mentioned things like this in the past to other people and other clubs, and it was laughed off as banter. Well, I'm sorry, it ain't banter. It's disgusting. And if you think that Alan Davies is, you know, a funny man, fair enough. That's your opinion. But I tell you what, he ain't never walking in the Etihad Stadium ever again. And that isn't anyone threatening it, actually. He's never,
I don't even understand how he can walk in the Emirates Stadium again, as you pointed out.
It's the Emirates Stadium. And he's telling us to go and play in the desert. Well, where's the Emirates, you clown? You prat. Where's that? On the frigging moon? You don't play in the moon. It's just absolute crap. And it has annoyed me and it has wound me up. And I literally listened to it. And you know when people say your jaw drops, my jaw dropped. Because I thought I was back in 1979 and 1985 listening to some weird football chant. I'm like, what the hell am I in here? I'm sorry. It's wound me up. It's peed me off. It's disgusting. I don't accept it. I never will. I don't accept racism in any part of my life. Just don't. And neither does Rob. And we don't put up with it. And I ain't going to have. Call us for money. Don't care. That's jealousy and envy. Don't play the race card. Don't do that. Don't lower yourself. Anyway, that's me and my little rant over.
No, it's completely fair, Martin. And look, the problem is that we're not the right voices for this.
No.
We are and we aren't, because everybody at some level in life, whether it's you and your neighbours in the street or whether it's me and Martin on this small channel, everybody needs to stand up to it and say no to it. Everybody, at every level of life. I think it'd be amazing if Manchester City came out or other football clubs. How amazing would that be if other football clubs came out and said, look, prominent Alan Davies, prominent Arsenal fan, unacceptable, mate. And like I keep saying, this ain't an isolated incident, and it ain't just Alan Davies. It permeates our daily lives. I mean, there's something there's a big question that's been asked for a long time in this country, and that is, why don't we see very many Asian players coming through into football? Would you want to be an Asian lad now coming up through the football ranks?
Well, they always say we don't see many black coaches, do we?
Would you want to be a black or Asian coach or player coming through the ranks now? Like me and Martin said, me and Martin have been around football since the 1980s. We've seen it all. We've seen 1,000 times worse than what Alan Davies has done. And I'm not trying to mitigate what Alan Davies has done and said that, and by saying that I've seen worse. I'm just saying that things on the whole have generally improved, but it's still there, and unless it's stamped out at whatever level it's at, it still exists, and we need to get rid of it forever. And I just think there's the answer to your question why you don't see many young black players or young Asian players or young black coaches or young Asian coaches. Because they have to listen to people like Alan Davies, who is in a massive place of privilege, tell them to go and set football up in the desert where they belong. That's basically what he's saying.
But here's the thing. People will listen to Alan Davies. You know, our little small channel, great people listen to us. But when Alan Davies will speak on the Tuesday Club podcast, that will be heard by thousands.
And Abdallah, mate, that is seriously sad, Abdallah, that's the truth, that you wouldn't want any friends or family to play football in the current. That is so sad, because that's the opposite of what this country should be a beacon for. That's the opposite of what this world should be a beacon for.
Yeah, that is so sad. And Colonel Ward, thank you very much. I know you're a long-standing Arsenal fan, mate. You know, you followed me for a long time, and I thank you for that. And I've got to say,
I don't think
Colonel Ward.
I don't think prison's a thing. I don't think prison's a thing in this case, and I certainly don't think that prison's the right. I think education is the right.
Yeah, education.
Education, and perhaps he needs to step back and be taken down a few pegs, because like I said, he is in a high, mighty, privileged position in society.
And the really sad thing is, the Tuesday Club knew what were happening.
Oh, it's listened to by hundreds and thousands of people.
No, but there was a lot of. They were all cheering, and not only that, the tweets after it. As far as I'm aware, so far, there's no apology come out.
Hey, listen, listen. Everyone has their own personal opinion on the taking of the knee. All I would say is support the players who want to do it, whether it's having an effect or not. Support the players who want to do it, because if they believe that it's having an effect, then that's on them. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, by the way, Chris. Yeah, and listen, there are many things that we've tried in society over the years to eradicate different problems. Some of them work, some of them don't work. Some of them have an immediate impact, some of them have a long-term impact. Now, if we're still talking about players taking the knee, and we're still talking about racism in 20, 30 years' time, then maybe we failed a little bit. But the problem is, Chris, that the conversation needs to continue no matter what. The day that people fall silent and allow racism to happen is the day that we failed. So whether the knee is having an effect right now or not, at least there is still a message out there saying no to racism.
They're not giving up. And yes, I appreciate there's a lot of people who said, well, this has been going on for 20 plus years now, of kick it out and all the other messages we've had. And they've had the banners, haven't they, Rob? They've had banners that players have paraded out before the games, and they've had it. And like they say, Manchester City announced things at half time. It's about never giving up, always finding that new way of doing it, because it will get there eventually. It's just really sad that in 2022 we're having to deal with uneducated, idiotic stupidity that I would like to think Mr. Davies would probably look back at it and have a little bit of regret on the end of that. Went a bit too far there.
Things have got better. Listen, things have got better. I don't know how old you are, Chris, but like I said, me and Martin have been around since the 80s, and the 80s was the Wild West for everything. Homophobia, xenophobia, general violence, all of those things have improved massively, absolutely massively improved. But it's only because of brave individuals taking a stand against that. Now, we're in a bit of a modern day renaissance with that sort of stuff when you've got players like Raheem Sterling, who is a great man.
Saka missed a penalty in the Euro final.
Yeah, look at what
got death threats.
Now, and those are all individual issues that still exist. But
yeah. I mean, I will say, I think social media should step up a little bit more. I think there should be some more, I'm trying to think of the word, screening, for example.
Can I just say something though, Martin? I think the worst thing that could happen with Alan Davies is that he gets deplatformed. Because hold on, let me finish my point. When people get deplatformed, for example, Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, he was deplatformed from Twitter. And what happened as a result of that was, one, he set up his own platform to continue his bile, and two, other people carried on the fight for him. And what happens when you isolate people in society, when you cut them off from the mainstream, they end up in what's called an echo chamber, a resonance chamber, where they're only surrounded by people who have the same opinion as them. And when people are surrounded by the people who have the same opinion as them, nothing can ever change. Ideas die. And that's what happens in society. When you cut people off, ideas die, and people become ardent in their beliefs, and then their philosophies never ever adapt, evolve, or change.
Well, they get more extreme.
And they become more extreme, exactly. So Alan Davies shouldn't be shunned. Alan Davies shouldn't be cut off. But somebody big enough, brave enough, and respectable enough needs to challenge him. That's what happened. That's what should happen. And I do say the same to every single one of you in real life. If you ever come across anybody in any way that is wrong, or that you believe fundamentally is wrong and acting in the wrong way, you need to challenge that behaviour, because it's the only way that life changes.
I'll be honest with you. Should they be punished? Yes. But you punish them not to the effect where it will have a long-standing effect, like Rob's just said, and they rebel back. You punish them and then educate whilst the punishment is going on, for example. So they've got that light and the learning. Because for me, like Rob said, education is such an important role here. And that's where, about the social media stepping up, that they should be getting some, I'm trying to think of the word, I can't think of it, it's gone out of my head. But unfortunately, we are now in a society where, I see it on social media all the time, that social media is a little bit of the devil sometimes, because it's a faceless platform that you can say whatever you want on and get away with it. But this wasn't that. This was verbal.
Yeah.
This was heard. So you can't even say lost in translation.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think me and Martin,
he got a bit carried away.
I think me and Martin. Well, Martin, don't excuse behaviour.
No, I'm not.
See, this is the problem, Martin. Just don't do this. Just don't over process. Don't try and overanalyze. We've spoke everything we need to say. You've said everything you need to say. Now you're getting into the part of justification of action, and that's stop. We'll be back later on, ladies and gentlemen. This was just something that we felt the need to say, because of how we feel about it, and because voices like that should be challenged. If it's not what you're into on our channel, and if you think we're being politicised or whatever, I apologise, but that is absolutely not the core ethos of this channel. We are just challenging what we see. And we'll see you all again later on this evening. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Martin.